Before we get to today's stories, I would like to say a disclaimer. The stories presented in this video delve into themes that might be unsettling for some viewers, including graphic descriptions and eerie scenarios. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. These tales aren't for the faint of heart. If my chilling content sends shivers down your spine and leaves you craving more, please subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. Earlier this week, I had my first glitch in the Matrix. It was about 5 in the afternoon, and I expected my boyfriend to be home from work any minute. I decided to walk to the mailbox to check for mail, and fully expected to see him driving home from work along the way. We have a large communal box up the street from the house. Now, where we live is only accessible by one road, the road the mailboxes are on. This road leads into a 0.25-mile loop where our house is located. I can see our house from the mailbox. When I left the house, no one but our 2 dogs and 1 cat were inside. This is where it gets interesting. I noticed 2 neighbors drive by while I was headed to the mailbox, both in black cars. On the way back to the house, I saw a woman jogging, nothing out of the ordinary. Until I get to my front door and it's locked. I didn't lock the door. Why would I lock the door when I can see the house and am only a short walk away? Thankfully, I have my keys since I needed those to get the mail. As soon as I open the door, my boyfriend comes around the corner and says, "Oh, there you are. Where were you?" I stop in the doorway. "How the hell did you get home? Where is your car?" As I walk back outside to see his red car in the driveway, it had not been there seconds before. When I got back to the house, I would have noticed. I would have seen him drive by. There is no other way to our house than driving by the mailboxes. At first, he was kind of laughing and thought I was making a joke, but as I kept brining it up, he showed me a photo he had taken of the mountains behind the house from up the hill on his drive home. This photo not only has the mountains in the background, but also the mailboxes. What's missing from the photo? Me being at the mailboxes. If he was a block up the hill, taking a photo down a straight road, and then beats me back to the house from getting mail, how did we not cross paths? As I said before, I can see the house from the mailboxes, so I would have seen him pull into the driveway. It's been about a week, and I am still trying to wrap my head around what happened, or how we both could have missed seeing each other. Our cat was acting a little weird the rest of that evening and wasn't being quite as affectionate with me as he usually is. But by the following day, him and I were back to being besties. I can sort of justify the cat's weird behavior as just feeding off my strange feelings from what had happened. But if one animal were to be aware that I'm from another timeline, I think it would be the cat. When I was 2, my mom bought me a Mickey Mouse soft toy, about 20 centimeters tall. He came everywhere with me and was subject to a fair amount of abuse in the form of surgeries from one of my brothers. Tail snipped, arm ripped off, plastic eyes smashed and broken off in places from a metal bed frame, etc., and was stitched up countless times. As a result, he looked very much worse for wear and didn't have his original red shorts, but instead a blue knitted jumper and a blue shorts from another toy. When I was 24, I was in my apartment packing my suitcase for my first ever plane trip. I was off the following day to Scotland with my then boyfriend. He was on his way to collect me for the evening and then take me back to my apartment the next day to finish packing, and we would head straight to the airport from there. I walked from my bedroom with Mickey, looking at him, and I said aloud, "Luggage or carry-on?" He looked back at me with his sad, half-broken eyes and floppy ears from where the cardboard holding them up had long since been surgically removed. I decided carry-on, of course, for my companion. He was such a constant in my life. Through all kinds of trials and tribulations, he was always there. I wasn't going to subject him to a stuffy suitcase. I heard a knock at the door. It was my BF, so I tossed Mickey onto the pile of clothes sitting in my open suitcase on the floor. It was just temporary, but I distinctly remember just chucking him there and opening the door. The next day, the first thing I noticed when I got back to my apartment was that Mickey was gone. He was nowhere. It's been 7 years, and he's vanished. Note, I lived alone in an apartment building consisting of 4 units. Mine was the top left. The one below me, on the bottom left, housed a young Italian couple who kept to themselves, and the two on the right were empty, save for the builder/renovator who stayed there. No sign of a break-in, and who would steal a used-up old Mickey Mouse out of everything. Another note. I moved out about a month later. He was gone. He was absolutely nowhere. I dreamt of Mickey for a few months, genuinely mourning the loss of him. This just happened a few hours ago. A month ago, I bought a new jacket to wear for the cold winter weather, and also because I live in the PNW, something that will be okay to wear in the rain. I decided on a black Calvin Klein jacket that was all black, had 2 pockets in the usual hand spots, a CK logo on the left arm, and the zipper was on the left side of the jacket instead of the right side. I know that for a fact because every time I would zip up my jacket to go to work, I'd think about how much I dislike the zipper being on the left and not the right. I know that's usually on women's jackets, but look at the comments. Someone found the exact jacket I bought originally, and it is men's. I wore the jacket every day while at work, and I never took it off while at work. It's too cold these days, and I go outside of my work building multiple times a day. None of my coworkers have a Calvin Klein jacket, and they even poked fun at me for it when they saw the brand. So it's established that I never take my jacket off at work. And none of my coworkers also have a Calvin Klein jacket. Keep these 2 things in mind. Tonight I decided to wash the jacket with some other black clothes of mine. I had to remove the things that are always in my pockets at work before I could wash the jacket, which are 1 pack of gum, a pen that is from a unique pen set that only I own at work, and a small travel-size bottle of cologne that I spray myself with every few hours. So now I've established that I didn't mistakenly take a coworker's jacket because my daily carry items were in the left pocket where they always are. And remember, none of my coworkers have a Calvin Klein jacket. I take the clothes out of the dryer and grab the jacket because my wife wants to go out for dinner. I then get thoroughly confused. This isn't my jacket. This imposter jacket that I pulled out of the dryer has a bright white stripe going down the jacket right next to the zipper. The zipper is on the right side of the jacket. The CK logo that was on the left arm is now a full Calvin Klein logo, and the inside of the jacket is Sherpa lined. My jacket was all black with no white stripes. The zipper was on the left side. The arm logo said only CK, and my jacket was not Sherpa lined. I then have a mini mental breakdown where I question reality. Lol. I called my wife's dad just in case he owns a Calvin Klein jacket, and mistakenly left it at my house the last time they were over, and he says he does not own a Calvin Klein jacket. And like I stated before, I had removed my personal items from the pockets before placing them in the washing machine. None of my coworkers have a Calvin Klein jacket, and like I stated before, I never take my jacket off at work. I then looked at the website of the store I bought it from, and my jacket apparently doesn't exist. Only this new Sherpa-lined and right-sided zipper jacket is on the website. This is also literally the only big fancy brand clothing item I own. All of my other clothing is cheap stuff from Target or Fred Meyer, so I know I'm not mistaking it for another jacket I own. I bought it about a month ago and wore it every single day. I am so confused. Update. I explained the situation to my coworkers, and they also think that I'm wearing a different jacket. They agree that my original jacket just had a CK on the sleeve and that the zipper was on the left. Room rearranged while I slept. Here's something I've thought about on and off for years and has no explanation. When I was 15 and my brother was 18, we drove a couple hours with our parents to visit my aunt and uncle for the weekend in their large, early 1800s stone house they'd just purchased in a rural town. They hadn't finished all the rooms yet, so my bedroom for the weekend was the living room, where they'd made up the couch for me. We had a big meal. Very normal evening, and everyone went to bed. I slept normally, stirring a few times and noticing the embers in the fireplace. I remember this because I had never slept in front of a fireplace before, and it felt like something out of a movie. When I first opened my eyes the next morning as the sun was coming up, I immediately startled with a surge of adrenaline. The entire living room had changed configuration. The couch I was sleeping on was no longer facing the fireplace, but was perpendicular to it, facing another side of the room. The chairs were arranged neatly, facing the couch. The large area rug everything rested on was turned the other way. I heard others already awake in the nearby kitchen and scrambled out of bed to see how and why they switched all of this while I slept. The adults laughed and said, I must have been really tired when I went to sleep, because the living room hadn't changed. We went back and forth for a bit, but they held firm, and at that point, I had no other explanation, so I agreed. My brother woke up and we all had breakfast. After breakfast, he and I walked toward the living room, and when he reached the doorway, he said, "Whoa, who rearranged everything?" I couldn't believe it. We chatted about it for a minute, and I told him what had happened and how no one else had agreed. He described the furniture configuration to me exactly how it was when we were all in it the night before. I made him go back into the kitchen with me to tell the adults, and they couldn't understand what we meant, clearly thought we were messing around, and had no explanation. There's no way I wouldn't have woken up if this was a trick. I've always been a light sleeper, and the couch was a huge, old velvet thing, and the rug was enormous and covered most of the room. Not only that, no one in my family was the tricking type, including my brother. We were so confused, but chalked it up to being tired, left it alone, and moved on. 2 years later, when I was 17, we visited them again, this time without my brother, as he had moved away. I stayed in a finished room upstairs this time, and had a very uneventful night's sleep. The next morning, the three of us got into my parents' van to head to a museum. When my dad started driving and pulled out into the road, I was so confused about what he was doing, driving on the wrong side. When a car started approaching, I screamed, "Dad, watch out!" Both of my parents startled and looked back at me, annoyed, asking what I was talking about. I asked them why the heck Dad was driving on the wrong side of the road. They looked at me like I was nuts and explained that he was not. I was so confused but stopped pressing it, as it was clear they were irritated about how I wasn't making any sense. This terrifying feeling of being on the wrong side of the road while driving lasted for days, only easing when we were close to arriving back home on Sunday. Then, it was gone for good, and has never come back. For a couple days, I just silently dealt with it in the back seat, trying to distract myself by listening to music and shutting my eyes. So I guess my question is, has anyone ever experienced anything like this before? There were some other minor creepy things that happened in the house, but I'm very familiar with old houses and wasn't alarmed by them. These were the only 2 times in my life I remember experiencing a strange, deeply unsettling, discombobulated feeling, and both of them were tied to that house. I never visited the house again because my uncle died a few years later, and my aunt sold it. Would love to hear any thoughts or similar experiences. I always feed the stray cats. In my streets, on my way back home from work, I try to feed them all, and I have a special male cat from whom I receive so much love. He doesn't let any human touch him except for me. But lately I haven't seen him that much. I thought maybe it's because it's winter and it's their mating season, and he might be looking for a female to mate with. However, every night I hear so many cat fights near our street, to the extent that I've never heard such sounds before. It was so aggressive, and it makes me anxious that he might be one of them. So yesterday I decided to wake up and go to where I could hear the sounds coming from, so I could stop the fight and feed them at the same time. It was 5 a.m. and I was asleep. All of a sudden I heard them again, grabbed my coat immediately, put on my glasses, and ran to them. I saw the male cat at first, and his ears were down as he was standing curiously looking at something. I was going to go to him, but I thought he was focused on his prey, so I decided to stay for a little bit. Then suddenly, he made the "I'm annoyed by you" sound. I walked slowly towards him until my vision cleared to see what he was looking at. I don't really know how to explain this to you because I'm still in shock from what I saw. There was something very weird trying to shape-shift into a cat. It was spinning around, and the vision was very clear. because there was a light shining in that direction on them, and there was no one else but me and the cat there. It was as if it was just pixels. And it would show a cat's head and then disappear, then a cat's tail and then disappear. My heart dropped at what I saw. The stray cat was looking at this strange entity in a defensive and aggressive stance. Then I saw him backing away slowly to the small corner. I tried to walk back home slowly. I'm not the type of person who panics or screams if I see something like this, so I managed to calm myself on my way home. But when I finally reached home, I broke down crying. I have a lot of stories that have happened to me, so it's not new, but I seriously can't believe what I saw. FYI, I saw the male cat on my way to work this morning, so nothing happened to him. I fed him and he was happy to see me. Please don't attack me for keeping him behind. I was scared. At least 12 hours passed with no memory of what happened. This event happened in June of 2023. I used to have an office set up in my bedroom and was doing some work late at night on the computer. I remember checking the time and it was midnight. I did not feel tired yet and wanted to finish the project I was working on while ideas were still fresh on my mind. I typed some and did a little research for the project and checked the time again, surprised it was already 2 a.m. I got up to go to the bathroom and go to bed. And when I opened the bedroom door, I saw light shining from the window. I have blackout curtains in my bedroom and didn't notice outdoor light before this. I started walking to the window to make sure it was really daylight when I saw my wife sitting on the couch with our kids watching TV. Asking her the time, she confirmed it was 2 in the afternoon, not morning. I panicked hearing that, wondering what happened to the other 12+ hours. I did not feel like I slept at all, as I was rather tired, fatigued even, and I believe I would remember the sensation of waking up. She told me that she woke up around 7 a.m. with our daughter, and I was at the computer, looking at the monitor, with headphones on, which I would always wear when she was sleeping. She said she told me good morning, and she loves me and assumed I didn't reply because I was watching YouTube or listening to music. I went to bed and woke up after roughly 4 hours of sleep with a horrible migraine. I get these occasionally. They're usually not too bad, but can sometimes be pretty debilitating. I also started thinking of the possibility of things like a stroke, seizure, or other neurological issue around this time. Unfortunately, with my migraine, I chose to wait until I felt better to see my doctor, since I would not have been able to drive, and my wife did not drive at the time. I also chalked up stroke fears and such as my migraine symptoms, such as cognitive struggles, fatigue, brain fog, etc. It took 2 weeks until I went to the doctor, another week to get in for an MRI, and thankfully, nothing was found. As for seizure possibility, my doctor didn't bother with an ECG since I waited so long to go in, it would have been pointless, and I also do not have a history of seizures. I'm thankful that I do not have any brain issues, but this event has since been something I constantly wonder, what the fuck happened? This genuinely terrified me, still sets me in a panic sometimes thinking about it today. It's a really unsettling sensation to not notice so much time pass, or even feel it physically, despite possibly the tiredness and some fatigue, but that to me would have also been normal for staying up until 2 a.m. Some extra notes. I am in my early 30s. I have had migraines since childhood, and never had time loss besides maybe forgetting a boring drive to work when I arrive. I have not ruled out the possibility of a seizure. Frontal lobe seizures, I've learned, can be tricky to detect since those with them do not remember having one, and they can sometimes create large gaps of memory loss leading up to the seizure. However, I had no internet history for the entire period of time I lost, and had only YouTube and Google Docs open in tabs at the time. Nothing new was typed on my project either. I take Adderall, but have never abused it, though I have missed a day if I'm late requesting a refill or a pill here and there. This was not one of those days. I vape nicotine but do not drink or consume any other drugs. I stepped back in for a few minutes. I love abandoned places, always have something about seeing what's left behind and how things age is so interesting to me. It's especially interesting when everything is left the way it was when the building or house was last used. Seeing things naturally rot or change without humans is very fascinating to me. In Hawaii, about 6 years ago, I was near a shopping center when I overheard someone say all the restaurants further down were abandoned. I decided to go check out the abandoned restaurants. I saw an outdoor restaurant first. It had clearly been abandoned for many years. Not much had been left behind, so I went to the next one. The next one was a buffet that had everything left behind. But it was clearly abandoned and had been abandoned for many years as well. The ceiling fans were in bad shape, thick dust covered everything inside, and a sign on the door read "Condemned." I couldn't go inside, but I looked through the windows and saw cobwebs and the dust, of course. The name of the restaurant was Hawaiian Buffet, with some cartoon palm trees on either side. Lastly, there was an abandoned subway that had pretty much been gutted. The subway was in the worst shape. Tables and chairs stacked on top of each other. Parts of the ceiling had fallen onto the floor. The fans were in very bad shape as well. An old faded sign read, "For sale" on the door. I walked back to my family, who had been shopping a few blocks down. Around an hour later, they decided it was time to eat. I told them all the restaurant further down were closed, but they didn't listen. Well, going back to that same area an hour later, all 3 restaurants were open and fully functional. The buffet was clean and the doors were open with lots of people eating food. The bar had people packed around it, mainly drinking, and of course, the Subway was open with a few people in line. We decided to eat at Subway. I went back to that same area the next day, and all the restaurants were abandoned again. I know it was the same area too, because of the names of each of the restaurants. My family just assumed it was several blocks further than we had gone the day before. Since they did not pay much attention to the names or the other restaurants I had seen the day before. I went back in 2022, and the restaurants were still abandoned and in slightly worse shape. I just got married, and I saw a familiar face who saved my life. I don't know her. The first moment I can't think of me getting a look of her was when I was 14-15. I saw her in a dream. Her name was Lise, which is a common name in my country. I don't remember that dream exactly. I just knew I woke up late and I was reminiscing because I thought I saw her in a dream before a few times. She looked to be around 23 and looked gorgeous. She appeared a few more times in dreams while I was living on my own when I was 18. I did notice that it seemed like every time Is was somewhere at 2 a.m. when I woke up. One night I got drunk and the last thing I could remember was me at the police station, saying that there has been a terrorist attack in a bus in my city of residence. As the day after, I found lots of news stories, basically all saying this happened somewhere around 2:40-something am. With only 2 videos of in the bus, there was me standing next to this woman Lise. I fell on the ground, not dead, but just because I was drunk, and Lise came to help me. Now, a few nights later, she claimed in a dream she was the one that saved me, but I wouldn't know why at this time. It was freaking shits, but this wouldn't be the last time seeing her. A few years later, I was at a bar and kinda depressed at this moment of time. And lonely. I thought I was going to be single for a long time. That's why I was depressed. I saw that there were 3 tables on the one side of the bar, and all bar stools were taken. As I wanted to sit, I decided to sit with strangers, at this point still sober. 2 tables had 1 open seat, but someone took the seat I wanted to sit in before me in the table next to the door. So I went to the other table and sat down next to a woman which I would eventually marry. When I was done, I bought drinks for her and totally happy and drunk. I do remember this bit because when walking out, the woman who took the seat I wanted to sit in originally was Lise. As I was trying to be with this girl I met at the bar, her name is Zita. I didn't talk with Lise, but it did send shivers and I was in total shook. In this time of my life, my mother was struggling with cancer. She just got it, and things weren't likely to end good for her, as she had stage 4. I came to visit my mother 3 times a week, as I was always busy. As it kept looking less likely, this one time, I saw Lise walking towards my mother. And just so you know, it's almost 8 years later before I got my first memory of Lise when I was 14, 15, and she still looked the same. She had something in her hand, and that is what I remembered. I didn't look at what she had in her hands because I was trying to process the face as she'd come across like once in the 3 years, but this was only like a month after the bar incident, so I was going nuts. I yelled, "Lise?" She looked back and hurried away. I ran after her. As I was chasing her around, she barely got inside the elevator, so I went in the other elevator. Because I thought of Lise as some sort of goddess or something like that she would go to my mother's room. I didn't see her leave the elevator, nor did I see her in my mom's room. That night, she got in my dreams holding a silver-like object, saying she saved my mother. At this point, I didn't know what it meant, and I woke up, looked at my phone, and it was 2:42 a.m., and soon a week later, news broke that things were likelier to end up good for my mother. And I had almost the same thing, Lise with her silver-like object, saying she saved my mother and I should trust her forever. Woke up at 2:42 a.m. that night. Now it's my wedding like 5 years later and I saw Lise still looking the same. Went up to her and she told me that she wasn't needed anymore, and disappeared. Not that quick we actually talked, but she ignored most questions. I asked her about the bus incident, and she said a bullet would have gone in your stomach if she wouldn't have let me tripped. I wouldn't have met Zita if she didn't sat there, and that she saved my mother with a silver corrector. However, she wouldn't tell me what a corrector was. I don't know if I'll see Lise ever again, as this was just 2 days ago, and I only slept 2 hours in that time because of her. Usually she comes by like once every so much years, so it's going to be a while before I know if I'll see Lise again. But if I do, I'll try to remember to post an update. I'm ready to tell my glitch in the Matrix story. Time loops and seeing my sister twice. Hello everyone. I am a long-time lurker of this sub, first-time poster. The story I am about to share is 100% truth and really happened to me about 15 years ago, believe it or not, but to this day I cannot explain it. I changed the names to remain anonymous. When I was 15, my family moved into a rental house. There was always a weird energy about that house. I can't explain it, but something was always eerie about it. It was a beautiful old home, and an elderly widow had lived in it before us. She had been an opera singer and college professor in the arts. Her name was Mrs. Martin, and she became kind of a character in the house that we'd reference often, as her children rented us the home with literally all of her belongings still in it. They didn't even clean out the fridge. It was very strange. The house was basically left like the day she passed away. Oh, and the attic was infested with bats. No clue if that's relevant, but it contributed to the spooky factor that was always felt in the house. I never liked staying by myself there, even during the daytime. On the night of the incident, I was home with my best friend Mallory, also 15, her younger sister Olive, 13, and my little sister Emma, 11. Mallory and I were in the living room watching a movie, and Olive and Emma were hanging out in the den, which was a room off of the living room with a door, and they were watching TV. No parents were home at the time. At one point, my sister Emma decided to go upstairs and take a shower. The way the house was set up, there was only one staircase, and you had to walk through the living room to use it. So she came out of the den, walked through the living room, went up, showered, and was up there for maybe a half hour. When she was done, she walked down the stairs in a white towel, stopped on the 6th step, and went, "Hey guys," with a little wave to which we acknowledged her cheerfully. And then she kept walking down the stairs, through the living room by Mallory and I watching TV, and opened the door into the den and closed it behind her. My mom had been folding clothes down in the den earlier, which is why she came downstairs to get dressed. Maybe 2 to 5 minutes later, Mallory and I still in the living room, and Olive and we assume Emma are watching TV in the den, when we hear from over our shoulder, "Hey guys," in the same inflection and tone as before. And it's my sister Emma, in a white towel, who had walked down the stairs, was stopped at the 6th step, had her hand up for a small wave, and then went to keep walking down when Mallory and I both gasped. turned and looked into each other's faces with absolute horror. It happened so quickly, but we both bolted upright, ran to the den, burst open the door to a startled Olive. Emma was trailing close behind with a "What's going on?" When I opened that door, I truly expected to see another version of my sister sitting in there. But no, it was just Olive. Mallory and I immediately began questioning them. "Emma, didn't you just walk down here a couple of minutes ago?" "Olive, are you sure Emma didn't come into the den just a few minutes ago?" "Emma, did you come downstairs after the shower, but then go back up somehow?" But we knew there was no way she could have come back upstairs without walking by us in the living room. It made no sense. Both girls were so confused and beginning to get scared. They truly had no idea what we were talking about. Emma swore she had only come down the stairs that one time, and Olive swore she had never walked into the den in a towel before we all came in together just then. Because our sisters were so young at the time, and we could tell they were getting spooked, we decided to just pretend we were kidding and left them to go back to the living room. I remember sitting in silence, and maybe even asking, "You saw that too, right?" And then we never spoke of it again. I honestly didn't even tell my parents or my sister what had happened until a couple of years ago. My sister said she has no memory of it at all. I haven't spoken to Mallory since high school, so I have no idea if she remembers it. All I know is, if Mallory hadn't been there to witness it and have the same reaction I did in that moment, before either of us even spoke a word, I probably would have thought I was losing my mind. I'll never forget the look of horror and confusion she gave me, and I probably gave right back to her when Emma came down the stairs that second time. To this day, it still creeps me out to think about. In the years since, I have read many stories about glitches in the Matrix and seen some about time loops. People witnessing the same event happen twice or more in the same way, usually close together. I believe this is what I and Mallory experienced with my sister that day. We only lived in that house for a year before my parents purchased their own home, and we moved. Last year, my sister went back to visit the town and said she drove by that house. Apparently, they had split it into 2 homes to rent it out to the college kids. We both agreed that the strange energy forces that existed in that home were probably not too happy to be split in 2. So that's my glitch in the Matrix story. Like I said, it's all truth. Anyone else ever experience a similar time loop? Oh boy, you guys would love where I work. Weird things happen here all the time, but I'll just talk about one of the creepiest moments I've experienced here. I work as a security nighttime attendant at an apartment building. It's 24 stories and one of the oldest buildings in the city. One night, I'm sitting here when the phone rings at about 3 a.m., and I answer. "Hello, this is Draven at the front desk. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end sounded female, but was totally garbled, and the only bit I could make out was 23rd floor. I tried to tell the person I couldn't understand them and asked what apartment they were in, but again, garbled response and 23rd floor. After the 3rd time of trying to understand them and the same response, I said since I couldn't understand them, I'd come up and to meet me in the hallway. So I go to the main elevators, and both are up on the 23rd floor. Luckily, we have an older service elevator, and it's only on the 7th floor, so I call it down. I get it and hit the button for the 23rd floor, but it won't move and the inner door won't close. So I go to unlock the reset panel, and boom, we start going up. Door still open. I'm freaking out, and the elevator is shaking because it goes pretty fast and is old. As I'm going up, I just stay towards the back, and finally I reach floor 23. I step out, door closes just fine, and I look around the hallway. There's nobody around. I walk along slowly, trying to listen for anyone awake who might have called, but there's nothing. So now I head the opposite direction and go towards where the regular elevators are, and when I get to them, they are just sitting there with their doors open. I was pretty freaked out, but I knew it could just be the elevators on the fritz. So I get in and figure I'll just reset them when I get to floor 1 when I hear the sound of the back stairwell closing. So I quickly get out and go to the stairwell, and lo and behold, no one's there. but the maintenance door to the machine room is ajar, and at that time, I'm the only one in the building with a key. At the top of the building is a large machine room housing all the really loud machinery that does stuff in the building and allows access to the roof. I don't like going into it because it's creepy as fuck and no one ever goes there. So at this point, I'm seriously freaked out, but I muster up and head in. I shout, "Hello," and there's no response. The lights in this room flicker because they're shitty fluorescent, so I can't see well either. But at the end of the room, I can make out the roof access door, and sure as shit, it's slightly open. So I slowly continue forward, checking the space in between each machine as I walk by, and there's no one there, so I open the roof access door. I can't see anyone ahead of me on the roof, but there is a slight wraparound, and if there was a jumper or something, I needed to be sure, so I step out and leave the door ajar like it was. Almost immediately, the door is pulled shut. Now, I might have written it off as wind or something, but this door is hard to shut and hard to open. Really hard. I immediately grab the handle and hank it open, slam it behind me, and run straight for the maintenance door. It automatically locks when it's closed, so I slam it shut too and go back to the 23rd floor hallway. Get into an elevator, doors still open, and go all the way down to the first floor. I go back to the main lobby, and as soon as I sit down, the phone rings. I pick it up, don't say a word, and sure as hell garbled voice again, only audibly saying 23rd floor. I hung up the phone, turned the ringer off, and spent the rest of the evening just staring at the parking garage security monitor. There's been a bunch of creepy things happen at this building. It's basically like the Overlook Hotel at night. I walked past a dark room here on the first floor once and swore I saw myself standing inside it. The next night, as I'm inside, said room cleaning, the lights flip off and I turn around to see a quick flash of myself walking past. That's it for today, guys. Did you ever had a glitch? Share in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.